My name is Mikeum Matthews. I was born and raised in Mesa, Gilbert area of Arizona for the most part. I was a fairly typical kid, I believe, your stereotypical Mormon. My family was pretty stereotypical there as well. I grew up not ever thinking anything was different about me. I mean, I dated in high school, I attended seminary and church, I even had kissed and made out with a few girls. I was deemed picky, probably would be the words my friends would use about me, and I never thought anything too crazy about it. I just always thought that when I was with the right girl, I would be more attracted to them. Otherwise, they were always just my good friends. And even when I went on dates with them, I considered them just to be friends, and it was just a good time going out with them. I went on my mission when I was 19 to Houston, Texas, and people always ask if I had any inclination that I was gay even then. And the strange thing I think about me is I didn't know at all. I mean, I should have inklings of it, but it didn't even cross my mind. I considered myself to be perfectly straight in all aspects and regards. And if there ever was a time that I saw a kid, even in high school, or on my mission that I thought was attractive, I wasn't attracted to them, obviously, because I was straight, but I just thought I was jealous of them, and that girls wanted them, and that they were attractive, not realizing that I probably wanted them. But things didn't really start happening until I got home from my mission. And I reached a point where I decided I didn't want to go on a date anymore if I wasn't attracted to the girl. I mean, things were getting serious now, and I was supposed to be marrying now. And so I wanted it to be more serious. And this caused a problem because eventually I just stopped going on dates. I never would go out anymore. And it started a downward spiral, I think, of kind of a depression and loneliness, because all my friends were going on dates, and they would keep talking to me to try and get me to go on dates, and I just was not interested in anyone, which was really hard, especially when I was in Provo, and which is amazing. That's what you do, is go on dates there, and you go out and you kiss girls and make out with them and all the fun stuff that everyone does, and I was just at home. And it got pretty hard, I think, at this point in time, because I remember specifically when I started to realize that maybe I did have feelings for guys. Tinder was the big thing at the time, and so all my friends were on Tinder, and I kept having just this curiosity towards, what if I switched it to the male setting? What if I just wanted to see how many would like me, how many I could catch? And not that I was interested at all, I just wanted to see who was interested in me. And I started doing that secretly, but even then I was clueless to myself. But things really got hard when I remember specifically my roommates were doing like a group date, and they were out in the family room watching a movie, and of course I was invited to be the third or fifth or seventh wheel, which I had been many a time. And I just remember feeling so lonely that I went back to my room, and I was crying and praying to my Heavenly Father that I was so tired of being alone, that I didn't want to be alone anymore. And so And at that point in time, got on Tinder again, and I switched to boys, and this time I was actually talking to them. And that started an emotional roller coaster, to be sure, as I started actually connecting with these guys and realizing that everything I had been taught about gay guys was not accurate. I even had an uncle that is gay, and I remember talking to my cousins about it and my mother, and it was just the stereotypical things about how it was a choice, it was an addiction, something that they should overcome. If they wanted to, they could. And as I was talking to these guys and realizing more and more that I might fall into this category, it wasn't lining up with what I had been taught. My feelings wasn't this addiction. I did eventually end up meeting up with some of the guys. And I remember the first night that a guy kissed me. And it was entirely different than anything I had experienced when I had kissed girls. In high school, when I would go on a date and everyone would talk about, oh, you're going to kiss her after the date. And I'd even talk about how I wanted to kiss someone and I was going to kiss her after the date. And most of the times I didn't, but the few times I did, or even when I made out with her, sometimes I'd be like, is this really what I had wanted? But when the guy had kissed me, it was like it was like nothing I had experienced, in the sense that all this time that I had kind of felt broken from my friends. Broken in the fact that I didn't want to kiss the girls. And when I did kiss girls, I felt like, is that what I wanted? It was insane to me how I suddenly wanted to kiss this guy back. And all of those urges that my friends had talked about and you're warned about in church came into play. And to me, that was a relief. I remember going home, even after I was dealing with the torment of, oh my gosh, I just kissed a boy, there was still that feeling of peace in the fact that I wasn't broken. That I had all the feelings my friends had. It was just different. Then, of course, as I finally realized I was gay, I immediately went and told my mother. Was the first person I told. And I knew that my mother wasn't good at keeping secrets and that it would eventually start spreading. And my mother actually kept it for a very long time. And I told my little brother next, and my older brother, and I was still at this point just telling them I'd kissed a boy and that I was cuddling with boys and talking to them, but I, of course, didn't classify myself as gay yet. But my family started to figure it out. My brother actually came to me and said he had prayed about it and that he knew I was struggling with something. And he's like, and this is what I was told. And he was right. I never hid anything, which I think was my biggest blessing when it came to my family. Because they started to see from the beginning how hard this was going to be for me. Because obviously I started to deal with the clash between me and my religion. And it was heartbreaking in the beginning as I realized that everything I had been taught and told wasn't exactly how I was feeling. And I had been raised and full-heartedly believed everything that I was taught and in the gospel. And so to come across this misrepresentation within my church was hard on me. But I was still determined to try and figure out what I was going to do. I still have a testimony. I knew that this had to be, there had to be a reason for this. And so I immediately dived into research and studying, and I went to groups and definitely prayed a ton. And it was probably one of the darkest times in my life. And I realize now what a blessing it was that God had kept me in the dark on my own sexuality. I know that if I had faced anything I had faced, if I had known I had feeling for men before my mission, or even while I was in high school or during my mission, I don't think I would have been strong enough. And so I count that my biggest blessing that I didn't know. And I personally believe that was in God's hands. And so as I started to pull everything together, I remember being in sacrament meeting once praying, and I had reached the point where I remember saying, if this was really going to take my salvation like I was told it was, that I would rather God take me. That I would rather I die now than to lose exaltation. And I remember I went home from that sacrament meeting, and these thoughts began to come to my head about things I had taught on my mission, about the purpose of life and why I was here. And I remember teaching that it was to gain a body and then to gain experience so I could become like my Heavenly Father. And as this started to play around in my head, I began to find pieces. I realized I was going to gain that experience. And so I started to look into dating guys. I was gonna have a family. I was gonna have a relationship, and because that's where most of that experience is gained. That's why the family is the central point in our church. It's because you learn so much from dealing with a relationship. You learn so much from having a family. And so I was gonna get that. And then I decided that I would just deal with on the shelf, put it on the shelf and deal with it later. Of when I met my Heavenly Father, I would stand and I would show him that I didn't bury my talents, that I had been dealt a hand that wasn't ideal to the church. I wasn't something that I was going to be the best at, but it was my hand, and I was going to play it to the best that I could. And if I stand before the judgment seat, I was going to show him all that I had accomplished. And I know that my heart was good. And I know that he knows that. We're often told that he counts the tears of his daughters, and I'd like to think that the tears of his sons have weight too, because I shed so many in my journey in figuring out how I was going to go about this in this life. And when this came to me, I felt better about me and who my decision was. And so I walk around keeping a motto in my mind from Wreck-It Ralph of, I'm bad and that is good. I will never be good and that's not bad. There's no one else I would rather be than me. And even though I don't live the ideal life of the church, I am bad. To me that is good. And there's no one else I would rather be than me. And so I just take it one day at a time, knowing that I will do the best I can, and God knows that it is my best.